watching SKST Radio.
Well, welcome to another episode of SKST Radio with Cammie, Grayson, and friends. You're tuned in to the Authoress Network, and I have Miss Jude here. Yay, Miss
Hello.
Jude! And we have co-host down there, Rome Foster. Woo-hoo! And our engineer is on the show, DJ T Nice. Woo, 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 woo! Welcome, Jude. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. So, girl, okay, I hear you wrote a book. Tell me about this book.
I wrote a book. It's fiction, and it is based on my psychic experiences, mostly over the past 10 years. I wanted to write since I was a small child, and over the years, I just felt like I didn't have anything to say.
Okay.
And finally, after the past 10 years, I realized I did have something to say that needed to be said to help people going through their own psychic experiences, to give hope to people that have lost loved ones, and to know that there is more.
So, how did you realize that this was within you? I want to say it.
I've had experiences all my life, but they were my reality, and I didn't realize that other people didn't have them.
Okay.
It came to a head about 10 years ago when I woke up to someone sitting on the edge of my bed, and I knew I lived alone. And I have hardwood floors, and I knew the way those floors creak, nobody got in my house without my hearing it. And I just sat up and I reached my arms around to trap them. I can't believe I did that. But I saw a man sitting there, and we both were astonished. We're sitting there with eyes wide open, mouth hung open, and then his face distorted and he morphed out of it.
Wow.
And shook me to the core. It was
So,
about 4 days before I even could tell anybody what happened. So
so who was that man, though? Did you figure that out?
I have not. I have a thought, but it's going to be in book number 2.
Okay.
So,
Suspense.
but it's taken, and I had that thought at the time, but I've never completely exactly decided over a 10-year period of time if it was, but nothing else has come to make sense otherwise. So,
but the spirit, that apparition, they were just as surprised as you were that you could see them. Wow.
Yeah, his was like, you're not supposed to know I'm here. So, yeah, he was. He had a full human body. It was like he had no bones. It's like he was a rubber doll and a pure hair. He's wearing nothing but poppy red silk sleep shorts. And it was just like, it's not quite what we expect here. It was clear and it wasn't translucent, but he definitely didn't belong in our world, and he left quickly.
Wow.
So that was kind of the beginning of the serious stuff.
Wow. Okay, so let's go back. So, do you know if anyone in your family experienced these same type of things?
My grandma, and she shared it with me. I would go to her in the summer and school, and I would spend nights there. She would use the Ouija board, which I gotta say, if I had a 12-year-old daughter, I don't know if I would be in favor of that. But she did. And she had an experience when she was 4 years old of being in St. Louis for her great-grandfather's funeral. And he had passed away at 94 years of age, and they were buddies. So this little 4-year-old wakes up seeing him in full military dress from the Civil War days and screams for her parents. And they come in, and she had described him to the T, and yet had never seen him in uniform and there were no pictures of him. I mean, that was the day you didn't have pictures of everybody.
Right.
She said she had not heard a peep from him until at the age of about 65, when he came to her in a dream. And I had an older brother that was in Vietnam, and he said he would be watching over him for the duration of the war. And she would have these visions of him come to her into the night. He would talk to her. He would tell her things. Now, during the Vietnam War, we didn't have news coverage like we do today. You didn't hear what we heard on the story, on the news story, was maybe 3 weeks old. Letters were 6 and 8 weeks in between. People didn't have cell phones. So that's the only communication you had. My grandmother's great, and she called him Captain Uncle Ben. He told her things about caches of weapons and where they were located. We'd never heard the word cache of weapons. It was totally new.
Oh, wow.
About the helicopters coming in and how big the mosquitoes were, and told her to tell my brother to use kerosene, white kerosene on you to deter the mosquitoes.
Oh, wow.
Like he was there in person. And so we followed that the whole time my brother was in Vietnam, and it was a great comfort that he was there. And then after my brother came home, she didn't hear from him again. But it was just so fitting that this Civil War survivor would be there to protect my brother.
Wow.
And he came home unscathed.
And they always say the angels are always with you. So do you
Yeah.
think that's a case of, the angels, the spirits are, is always with you type thing?
I believe in angels. I've always believed in angels.
Wow. Wow.
And our loved ones are only a thought away, you know, and they can be multiple places. And you just think of them, they're right there. They love that you think of them, and especially in loving memories,
So Jude, we were talking offline a bit. Speak to how all this started for you specifically, your first vision, and how it sort of grew from there.
To go back to my first vision that I recall, I was about 3 years old. And I had, at that time, 5 brothers. We lived in a 4-room apartment, and I was sharing a bunk room with my brothers. And I remember getting up in the middle of the night and looking out a window that was low enough I could see, and I observed an Indian village in my backyard. A live Indian village. They had horses. I could hear the horses snorting. There was a roaring campfire. I could see the tents that they lived in. I could hear the mumbling and the chanting. And the next thing I know, my mother is taking my hand and leading me back to bed. So at 3, I know I remember pointing, well, I'm able to convey what I've seen,
Right.
But physically, geographically, where we lived was about a block above the Mississippi River. It would have been a perfect campsite for an Indian village, water, protection, lots of animals to, eat. So that's the first one, and I remember it clear as day. And then otherwise, I just had visions from time to time, over the years. And we moved finally when I was about 7. My parents recognized the little girl needed in her own room. And it was the great divide in my family because my brothers didn't get their own room. They had a bunk room. And I, in no way, wanted my own room. I was scared at night. Faces. I could hear voices all the time behind me, just mumbling, nothing I could understand. And I was terrified, So that was the way it was as I was growing up until I left home. And then once I left home, I had just a few experiences here and there that I really didn't recognize that they were psychic, because the
Right.
information wasn't there to learn about it. There were no
Right.
TV shows, books. There weren't that many books, So I had to struggle alone. And even when things came to a head about 10 years ago, there was very little on the internet.
Yeah.
When I would search for like the vibrating bed that I felt after the man left, my bed vibrated enough I thought I was going to fall off of it.
Oh
And
my goodness.
it would just come up with generic things like a vibrating goodbye. Well, that wasn't the answer I needed. Visions of people in my bed. And, when I talk to others about it, if they haven't had experiences, they didn't relate and they weren't comfortable with it. So I kind of had to just go out on my own. And, when you experience a psychic event, I believe we feel the energy of the spirit, and it creates a sense of fear. I realized I was starting to have experiences, but I was waking up in fear, and I hadn't even seen or heard anything.
Right.
So once I could tell myself that, okay, I was already afraid, it's false fear, I'm going to ignore it, and I'm going to talk to whatever happens. Well, the first time I did that, I observed a box shape about a foot square of flames of fire on my wall, right at the top of the ceiling where the wall is, kind of encountering the ceiling. And I just go, I see you, you know. And it was so ridiculous. But as soon as I said that, this box of flame moved across my ceiling. And when it got to the light fixture, I felt the energy enter my body. I don't know what that was, if it was symbolic or what. I just know I experienced it. And then from then on, every time I had some sort of experience, and I talk about a lot of those in the book, I embrace it with a feeling of it's not always scary, it's not always bad, and just not to have fear. Now, I also talk about an event where, and I'm not sure which book this is in, it could be in book 2 as well, which, by the way, should be ready within the next couple of months.
Oh, wow. Congrats.
Good. Yeah.
You moving, girl.
Let's talk about sleep paralysis.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Experience that. Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Ooh.
Okay, that's wonderful. Cause now we're talking. I know you know it. Okay, now science and doctors will say it's part of our falling asleep mechanism. And they say it's to keep us from getting hurt in our sleep. To me, that makes no sense, because if you fall asleep and you lay on your arm too long and it goes to sleep, you're always able to roll over and shake it off and move. I don't experience sleep paralysis like that. What happened, I was having it. And then one night when I was doing healing, I opened my eyes because I was feeling something, energy. And I saw this humongous cloud of mist. It might have been 6 feet tall and 3 or 4 feet wide. And as soon as it hit the bottom of my bed where my toes were, my toes and feet became solid and heavy like concrete.
Oh, wow.
And I could not move them. I was paralyzed. And it slowly made its way up my ankles and up my lower legs. And then I am prepared to fight and struggle. And I heard angelic voices. They were melodious and layered, several layers. There had to be at least 2. And they said, no, don't. Send it love. And love, love, love. I'm in fear. Where do I get love?
Yeah.
Focused on my heart and thought of the most precious thing to me, my son, created that feeling and sent it towards this energy, which is now up to my knees. Everything's frozen up to my knees. It's just slowly making its way up. And as soon as I sent that feeling of love, this cloud dispersed into just sparkles. And the room became light and airy and felt safe. The paralysis was released.
Mm.
And I felt this tremendous sense of calm. And I just closed my eyes and went to sleep.
Oh, wow.
So love is 10 times stronger than fear. So if anybody is experiencing this sleep paralysis, I would encourage them to be prepared. Before you go to sleep, remember, love is stronger than fear, and I will send it love.
Mm.
So, and after that, I didn't have any more problems with sleep paralysis.
Wow.
Rather than a physical sleep response, I believe it to be a spirit attack.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so I remember growing up, and my grandmother used to always tell me that she was psychic. She would always say that I'm psychic. I know things. I know things. And then she would always tell me, but she never would say that to like all the other, grandkids or anything like that. She would always say it to me.
She knew.
And which was kind of funny. And then when her mom died, who lived in the house, my grandmother raised me. So when her mom died, she would always say, the lights would mysteriously be turned off. Someone would always turn the lights off. It kind of spooked me, but it didn't spook me. You know what I mean? Growing up. And she would always say, that's Mama Lena turning the lights off. You need to start turning the lights off. I always would leave the lights on. I love light, I would always leave the lights on. And she would always say, Mama Lena wants those lights off, because Mama Lena would go through the house and she would turn off all the lights.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so my grandmother would say, I always believed it was my grandmother turning the lights off. I swear to God, this day, I always believe it was my grandmother turning the lights off. But she would always say, Mama Lena would turn the lights off. And
Mm.
at some point, it's kind of like you don't catch her doing it. You know what I mean? You don't see her doing it, but you notice that the lights are turned off.
Mm.
So
Okay.
let me ask you, if you recall, you said it kind of spooked you. So
Yes.
did you feel spooked when the lights went off, or not until your grandmother said that was her mother?
Not until my grandmother said it.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
At first, like I said, in my mind, I felt like my grandmother was doing it.
Yeah.
And she was trying to spook me to make sure I would turn off the lights. You know what I'm saying? She was just trying to, I felt like she was just trying to make me remember to turn off the lights. Turn off
Mhm.
the lights, high light bill or whatever. Turn off
Mhm.
the lights. And so, but little things
Okay.
like that it was weird. But growing up, she was from the country. She was from O'Hare, Texas, and Indian reservation, and all, because she was part Indian, part Caucasian. She had all this soup thing going on, and she firmly believed in that. And I can tell you that I've had some experiences that I felt like either I knew ahead of time before it happened. And so I'm a firm believer that this is possible.
Mhm.
Not that I've experienced it in a hardcore way, but and Foster can tell you too, because me and him, we both on the same level. I can
Yes.
I can say this is what's going to happen, and it
Mhm.
actually comes true. I don't know how many times that has
Definitely.
been confirmed, that I would maybe it's just me being a writer, but in my
Mhm.
mind, I know that this is going to happen.
I being a writer, like I'll watch a movie and I said, well, this has to happen. You know,
Exactly.
it's just like there's no other way. That's where the next step is. That's where he's leading us. But I also can read a news article about a crime that's reported and know instantly, oh, that was an inside job. Oh, that didn't happen. I have
Mhm.
sense, and eventually the truth comes out. You know,
Yeah.
that was a false report, it was a cover up, or, oh, yeah, they were guilty. So there's this sense. We have wonderful senses that if we trust ourselves, it's very helpful.
So
Hmm.
a lot of people say, well, it's intuition. I have,
Yes.
yeah, that intuition. some of the and Cam has heard me talk about it, and Jude, I was telling you a little bit about it too, about the fact that I will walk in some rooms and the room will instantly become brighter, or I'll get an eerie feeling before I walk into a room, or when I approach each person, anyone that I don't know or may know already, I know what their intentions are towards me, or sometimes towards someone else. And I would literally navigate around those feelings. Sometimes I wouldn't go in a room because of that feeling, or sometimes I would because, okay, what is this? What's going on here? Or something will move over this way, which you're like, okay, so that happens to everyone. But what if that's something letting you know, hey, to move out the way? Little nudges, little thoughts. I think everyone has a bit of that ability. Again, I was saying that some people just know to strengthen it, or
Yeah,
some
they're
people
not in
just
tune.
want with a little bit more. Yeah, they're not as in tune, but it's there when we need it. Just that little voice, Sometimes it's a familiar voice. Sometimes it's just like, hey, don't go that way. Or have you ever been asleep and all of a sudden someone will call you and you wake up? Like, what was that? What was that?
Yeah,
I think it's all to protect us.
I hear voices both um, in my head and
Mhm.
also through my ears. Not all the time, but
Mhm.
and I wish I had more experiences like some of the famous psychics that we know, you
Yeah.
know. But I have plenty. But yes, I have been woken up and heard hello, and it's a man's voice, so it's
Mhm.
not my own. Um,
Mhm.
I think one of the like a fun experience I had was going to lunch and returning in my car, and I heard a voice say, "Are you watching?" And
Mm.
right in front of me, somebody opened their car door. And
Mm.
I would not have hit it, but it would have startled me to see it. But it was just kind of amusing. And I've never had that again, but somebody was watching for me.
Mhm.
Mm.
Wow. So Jude, in your book, do you reference and educate while you
Yes.
going in your book?
Yes. As this book is fiction and it features Sam, a young
Mhm.
30-year-old woman, and
Mhm.
the beginning of her experiences and her journey through fear and finally deciding to embrace her abilities, confront her fear, and to learn everything she can about. And as she does, she learns a little bit about, well, of course, not being afraid. There is meditation. There's a really good meditation exercise in there. And she learns about healing, uh, sending thoughts of good energy to somebody that is unwell, being able to connect with somebody anywhere in the world.
Mm.
And that was a fascinating experience. It doesn't matter where you are. We each have this DNA identification, just like our fingerprint, that's unique. And
Mhm.
just thinking of that person is enough to connect with them if you
Mm.
are filled with compassion and care. And I think that explains how our loved ones can respond to us when we just think of them. They know, they hear that call. She learns a little bit about chakra balancing,
Mm.
and there's just a little bit of everything. She learns about tarot. She decides that she wants to be more psychic and thinks that if she learns tarot, it will increase her abilities. Well, what she learns is that what you focus on is what you experience. So
Mhm.
Mm.
she ends up experiencing more tarot related things and less in the healing that she wants to do. So there's a lot of just enough explanation to help somebody understand what that particular subject is about.
Mhm.
And from there, they can decide if they're interested and want to know more, they can learn about it because it's different for everybody. When I
Right.
Mm.
started, the more I learned, the more I realized there was to learn. There's so many facets to being psychic and being spiritual. And I didn't know what to do first. And so the chakra balancing was like the very first thing I kind of ventured into. and it was educational and it was a fun experience. So that is what I did. The other lesson I learned is just because somebody says they're spiritual, there is all kinds of spiritual, from black magic all the way up to white magic prayer. And just like you wouldn't go down a dark alley at 3 o'clock in the morning, you want to be careful of what you associate with and who you associate with. You're going to experience what you are and how you think and how you believe. So the best way to have good positive experiences is focusing on love, prayer, and angels for protection, and it's there for you.
All right. Right.
Mm.
Now, let me ask you this, and both of you guys, either one of you can
Mhm.
chime in on this. I do know that some people are so spiritual that they don't even want to converse with someone who believes that
Right.
they're angels, and there's you know a spirit that will be there to guide you. Some people just so afraid that they don't want to, well, not maybe not even afraid. I don't know. It's, I guess maybe it's part of their religion or their upbringing. They don't want to
Mhm.
bring that into their temple.
They don't want to associate themselves
They
with
don't
it.
want to associate it with at all.
Yeah.
But I do also feel like when I lived in New Orleans, you know, I was told, I can't remember who told me this, but they told me, they said, um, there is a lot of people who practice voodoo and all these things. Hoodoo. That's the first time I ever heard of hoodoo and voodoo, right? And they were telling me, but if you don't believe in those things can't hurt you. And so, do you find that true or not?
I think I found, like I say, people that are very tied into their religion. Um, they've been taught to be wary of it, and so there is some, resistance there. And they mean well. I've been told, somebody, a very good friend, told me she was afraid what I was doing was the work of the devil. And my response was an intense kind of an anger or protection is, I got Jesus in my heart, you know, and you need to go back and read your books of Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John, because that's all about healing. And to her credit, she did exactly that. And it came to me later and said she admired what I do. And I think she was kind of, reflecting her church values and maybe the values of her husband, which he was more reluctant. And of course, he's hearing everything third hand, you know.
Mhm.
So, and you just got to respect that's where people are. And
Mhm.
you don't want to force it on anybody, but it's there for people that are open to it and want to know. That's who I want it to be out there for sure.
Mhm.
So how
That's interesting.
Well said. Well said. So I think that is interesting because a lot of people don't think you can believe in both and practice both at the very same time. Or it's just what your belief system is. Yours, as you say, is based in love first and foremost. I can see that you're a very spiritual person. I truly can see that. And I feel very comfortable speaking with you. And like I said, I get those intuitions, those feelings and all. And even in this type of setting, if, and Cammy knows, if I feel a certain way, I will not do it. I will not be there. Just the mere mention of a name, I would find something. Look, yes. So I can see that, and I admire the fact that you actually, want to share this with us and with whoever that wants to listen,
Mhm.
and to hone in on the positive side of what this could possibly, what this
Right,
actually is. Yes.
right. Okay, so the book "I Be Spooked"
Yes.
by Nell Nellis. Is
Mhm.
that how you say it?
I
Okay.
want to ask you about that too. I'm sorry, Kev. I want to ask you about that. So, Jude, where do you? So, you spoke about this a little bit off line. Nell Nellis. Tell us about that. Why did you? Why is that your? What is it? Your persona, your writing persona.
Your pen
Where did
name.
that come from?
And then when I was about 12, I announced to my grandmother, I'm going to write a book. And like all good grandmothers, she says, I have no doubt you will. You know, that unconditional love. And she says, well, you'll need a pen name. And she said, how about my mother's name? And her last name was Nellis, but her friends called her Nell. That was her maiden name.
Okay.
Maiden name. And so Nell Nellis has been picked out for my pen name since I was like 12, and it just took me all this time to use it. But grandmother lost her mother when she was about 12 years old, and her
Wow.
was a engineer and traveled the country building bridges. So he
Wow.
sent her off to boarding school in New Jersey, and they spoke nothing but German. Can you imagine losing your mother and then going to boarding school where you didn't speak the language? And I'm sure it was a strict environment.
Yes.
But yeah, that's to honor my grandmother and to honor her mother.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Well, that's
Beautiful.
nice. That's real nice. So tell people how they can get the book.
The book's available on Amazon, and it is in paperback, also Kindle version. So it's easy to go online and find it. Just find Be Spooked, and it's by Nell Nellis. And there also is the link to the author page so you can read a little bit more about me. I do have a little blog started. I'm not writing in it every day. I tried, and then I just didn't have something to say every single day.
It has to build. You have
I
to build that content.
have something relevant to say and not worry about it. Because when it ceases to be fun, you don't want to do it anymore.
Right.
On the blog, there is a little bit about the book, a little synopsis about the different characters, who they are. As you read through the book, there's a lot of characters in there, people that I have the psychic experiences with and did healing for. There's also a nice PowerPoint presentation that talks about chakras to give you a little beginning. So I think you find that useful. So I hope people find the book interesting and that it's helpful to explain experiences they may have had or their children may have had, just to help them along the journey. But yeah, I want people to believe in themselves and what they experience, and to know it's real
Yeah.
and more.
Well, we appreciate you taking time to share with our visitors and our listeners and viewers and letting them know, this is the situation. And to some people, like you said, it's okay. It's okay for this not to be your cup of tea. But at the end of the day, people experience different things that they can't understand or explain.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they have their own beliefs, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, and it's okay. We aren't here to judge others, but I think we're here on this earth to love, guide, and encourage.
Yes.
All the rest of it needs to go out the door.
Well said.
I totally agree. I totally agree. Okay, guys, we're gonna wrap this episode up. Miss Jude, is there any words of wisdom you would like to give to our listeners and our viewers?
Believe in yourself, and love is greater than fear, and we can make a difference one day at a time. Every one of us, just one person at a time, one day at a time, and even if all you have to give somebody else is your smile, oh, that's
That's so sweet. That's so sweet. Well, Ron Foster, you got anything else you want to add?
Just be kind to one another.
yeah.
I was just saying in the other show, people are so mean these days.
Yeah,
Yes, so
too
we
much.
need all the love that we can get. If I could throw flowers out to everybody, be the flower child, I would do it because we need it.
Definitely.
I think really the biggest percentage people are kind and good people. It's just the mean ones are real loud. And we
Mhm,
I
mhm.
like that.
give them
Oh my gosh.
what they deserve.
Well, thank you again for being on the show. Ron, thank you for sitting in today. I appreciate you. And DJ T Nice popped in and out. We'll love you. And you guys, until next week, right here, SKST Radio. Love you all. Have a good one. Happy Father's Day and
Yes.
happy Juneteenth.